Tim Jacobs is the founder of Jacobs Writing Consultants, an agency of professional ghostwriters, writing coaches, editors, and book designers that helps authors and business leaders create books that make an impact. Welcome to Notes from a Ghost, a podcast about stories and the people who tell them. My name is Charlie, and I'm a ghostwriter. I love a good story. I hope you enjoy this one. Tim, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I like that Notes from a Ghost.
Yeah, we don't hear from ghosts too often. I figured it's time to come out of the shadows. And apologize for my voice today. I've got a little bit of a cold going on. So right off the bat, why should someone write a book, especially someone in business, and then why should they get professional help to do so?
To answer the second part first is, as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. And it's the same thing like, I could probably go drop the transmission on my car, but I probably can't fix it and then get the transmission back in the car. I need a professional who has done this, who has learned that skill and has done it multiple times to do something like that. Why should a business person have a book? It's just, to me, I find that, it's an amazing kind of like resource or tool for them to have and to use. The same way you hand out your business card, your brochure, you get people to go to your website, to go to your social media. The same way you might stand on the stage and, speak for 30, 40 minutes. What a book provides is a way for you, to deliver your message, to let people know about your why, and just kind of like, what is the solution you're providing to your customers or your clients that have a certain challenge. And the unique thing about a book compared to anything else is when someone is going to read, they set aside time to read. They turn off the TV, the phone, the computer, and they sit and they read. No one is going to set aside an hour and a half just to go to your website. It's just not going to happen. But, a book for some reason brings that about. And if, you have a nice, like 175, 200 page book, it takes somebody like 3 sittings to kind of read through that book. Well, you just had 3 conversations with them about your business, about your why, your process, your solutions, and you weren't even in the room with them. And yet they've gotten all that information from you.
I've got to keep that one in mind of tuning out everything else. That's a great way to think about it, to lead with the reading experience. You just mentioned something that I think is worth getting into. You don't know what you don't know. What are the top things that somebody who maybe they do some writing and they're not totally incapable of writing, and I've worked with clients who actually are writers in one way, shape, or form, but process of putting together an entire book eludes them. What are like the top things that people don't know about the book writing process that a professional ghostwriter or editor can help with?
I would say the main thing is they don't understand the time involved, because they're probably so used to writing shorter pieces, whether that be, social media content or maybe articles, or they've written like, real short pieces of content. A book is a lot bigger undertaking where you're trying to keep that same theme or that same train of thought going consistently through the book or the flow of the book. And I think that's something that kind of surprises them, that they don't realize the time commitment that it could take. The other thing is just all the behind the scenes that kind of go on, all the different players, because you have different levels of editing between developmental, copy line, proofreading. Then you need someone to design your cover. And most people think, oh, the cover, but it's the front, the spine, and the back. And they all have different purposes. And, you need someone with a trained eye, someone who probably has a bit of background in marketing as well as design, and knows what to put for the cover, knows what content and what should go on the back cover. And, there's how do you register your ISBN and why is that important? Should I get a Library of Congress number? how do I copyright my book? There's just all these things they don't realize because they're on the user side of the experience. I go to Amazon or I go to the bookstore, I get a book and I read. And to go on that other side, it's just, it's basically a whole new world. And it's the same thing. I could drive a car, but I can't build a car. I just don't, I don't have that mechanical aptitude and knowledge and experience to do something like that. Back in the day, yeah, I could change my spark plugs, change my oil, things like that. But, like I said, if I have to do a major transmission drop, I can't do that. I need to have my car taken somewhere to have that done. But I would definitely say it's the time. They don't know all the components of the process. And I find the biggest challenge that business owners come into when doing their book, especially if this is their first book, they try to cram 30 years of experience and knowledge down to 175 pages, and you can't do that. Something that happened in the 1970s in the Jimmy Carter administration that affected your business one way or another. People today don't care about how or what caused anything. They just want to know, how do I get out of this? And how do I recognize the warning signals that this might happen again? And how do I prevent it?
I feel like that's my refrain whenever I'm editing. It's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Very true.
We could spend a lot of time talking about the skills that go into writing. And I feel like that's a topic that's been covered really well by in a lot of places. But what are the skills for on the author client side? What did they need to bring to the table to have a good working relationship with a ghostwriter and a successful book project?
Yeah, they need to bring in commitment, that they're committed to the project, because this is not like, oh, you're taking a 2-week course, you get a certificate, you're done. I mean, you're going to be spending a lot of time with that team. The other thing would be focus. Make sure you have a clear message and that you have a clear purpose for your book. And then the third thing I would say is, before you even jump in with the ghostwriter, or if you've written it yourself, you're starting to sit down with the editor and kind of chop things up, is have a marketing strategy for your book. And I always call it, plan for the life of your book, because your book is going to outlive you. And you want to make sure you have that clear purpose. And as an example, I always say, look at How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I could go online now. I could download his course. I could get his book. I could learn his lessons. I can get the value from that. I could apply everything I learned. And he's been dead since 1955. And yet it's still out there, and it's still changing lives. It's still making the impact that he wanted from the start. And that's the important thing, is to know what the purpose is of your book and what is the life plan for your book.
And your journey in the kind of professional storytelling arena started with Kindle. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've always been kind of dabbling in the publishing arena for the most part, ever since, kind of like high school and then after. And really what kind of maybe motivated me to do this business was my late uncle, who was an avid reader, 3-4 books a week, especially once he was retired and had more time. And so when Kindle came about, 2007 or 9 or something, my aunt had got that for him, figuring, you could have 100 books with you now and, always be reading. And he just really didn't take to it. And so that he had passed away shortly after that. And then that was gifted to me. And I wasn't familiar with the Kindle. I was not into electronic reading, as it was called back then. I like the physical book, still like the physical book, although I still, use a Kindle and other devices to read. But the one thing that really sparked me with the Kindle was the access all of a sudden now we have to all these authors, where before it was whatever books are in the library, whatever books are in the bookstore. And even when Amazon came about, you would still have to kind of dig and search to find some authors that might be great, but who are yet unknown. And one thing I discovered as I was getting some books by various authors was a ton of them were skipping editing, because you literally could sit down, type out your book, couple clicks, you're up on Amazon. Hey, I'm a published author, and they're out there. And I just realized they clearly had skipped editing, let alone even just like a decent proofread. And that kind of encouraged me to be like, I want to fix that, because the stories are good, but, people are only going to get past so many errors before they put it down, and they're not going to finish, reading your story. And at the time, I was living in Southwest Florida. I was the president of a writing group. I had 200 plus members in the group. And I definitely knew there were editors in that group. And I got together with them, and I started out just myself and 5 editors. I had a 1-page business plan. I asked them for feedback, and they all said, well, I really don't have much feedback for you other than I want to be a part of this team. And that's kind of how my business was born. And then I would basically be the face, the marketing, the, advertisement for the business. And then when a project came in, I would be project manager, and I would bring in the editor who best fit that genre or that topic matter. And from there, it just kind of, I just kept growing as I found authors needed different things. And the ghostwriting leg of that came into play when a publisher who we were doing editing for, we had done a handful of projects. He called me, gave me the scope of this project, and said, now we need a ghostwriter for it. And I'm like, well, we do editing and proofreading. I don't know about doing any ghostwriting. And then he gave me the budget for the project, and I was like, oh, I'll have you a ghostwriter tomorrow, because I had that group that I was president of. I have 200 writers chomping at the bit to write and get paid for it. And the next day I had him a ghostwriter who totally fit the scope of the project. And then that was just something I added on. And as I expanded, I'm now at about 25 editors and ghostwriters, and now they all subcontract with me. And then, of course, I made connections with people who do book marketing and promotion, who do book cover design, who do layout design, who do, bestseller campaigns. So now I could basically, I get a client, we could offer them, as the saying goes, everything under the sun for their book. And they don't have to go around and try to find go find an editor, go find a proofreader now, go find a designer, they just find me, and then I could bring the whole team into play.
Yeah, it sounds like an impressive operation. And it's probably a relief for someone who wants to get their book written to know that you can take care of the whole thing. And that's too funny about the budget. I think a lot of people want to be ghostwriters once they find out what ghostwriters get paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had a really every ghost I talk to has some wild client story. You had a special one. Somebody died halfway through a project.
Yeah, and it's not even so much that this person died, it's the whole story of everything that unfolded even afterward. But this gentleman had found me. He was probably in his 70s, and he had found me on the Editorial Freelancers Association, which is a professional group of editors and even some ghostwriters and stuff. And he had seen my profile, thought I'd be a good fit for his project. And he was writing a book about his childhood with his father. And he said his father was a medic in the Army during World War II. And also when he got out of the war, he settled near Hollywood in California and became like a doctor to the celebrities. And he had all these stories of growing up with, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz being over their house, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Jackie Gleason, Frank Sinatra, all these people visiting his father and growing up. And it was interesting. And our routine was, he would send me some stuff he written. I would really go through it like with a heavy red pen and send it back to him. And then we would jump on a call. And this guy was determined. I mean, it was literally every time I sent him something, 24 hours later, we're on a call. And I send him, we're about halfway through his book, and I send him the next round that we did, and I didn't hear back from him. So I wait a couple days and then I call him again. I leave a message. I send another email. Still nothing. Another week, I give him a couple more messages, and it was just very out of character for him not to respond. And after about a month of trying to contact him, I'm like, well, I don't know, So I move along to my other projects, my other, my daily life and whatnot. And I get a message on my phone. This gentleman leaves a message just saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm a lawyer, I have some questions for you, give me a call. And I have no idea what this was about, but I figure since it's a lawyer, maybe I should call back. And he says that he's the lawyer for my client, and my client had passed away, and he's representing the estate. And they found the printed manuscript that was, about 50% along with my business card attached to it. So he needed to know, are there any monies owed on this project because they have to settle everything? And I said, well, he paid me 50% and we did 50%. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're good and clear. And that was that. So I figured that's the end of that. But then 6 weeks later, I get another call, and it's this woman saying, I have some questions about a project you're working on. Can you call me ASAP? Here's my number. And I call her back. And this is that gentleman who died, not his widow. This is his ex-wife from so many years ago. And somehow settling all of his affairs and his will and everything else fell into her lap. And she was pissed off that she had to take care of all this because she wanted nothing to do with him. And he informs me that she found this book, found my business card attached to it, and wanted to know what's going on with the project. And I said, well, since he passed away, I can't finish it because I don't know what the second half of the story is. And she's like, well, I can tell you this. That book is 100% all lies and fabrication. He had Alzheimer's, and the only thing that was true is his father was a doctor in the Army, and that's it. They didn't know the celebrities. No one ever came to their house. None of that was true. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then she asked, and I also have a favor for you to ask of you. If our son, and she said he was like, maybe in his mid-20s, if he should approach you and say, in honor of my dad, I want to finish this, please just tell him no. You're too busy. You have other things, whatever. She goes, tell him absolutely no, because this book is not true. And it was just, I was just like, oh my God. And that had to be probably the most craziest thing, I think, in the, 12 plus years I've been doing this full time, at least, that something like that has happened.
Whoa, that's a whole other level. I don't know if I can top that one. It's interesting. You hear people say, like, we as ghostwriters, there's a very special, almost sacred relationship where you get to hear someone's stories and be a part of someone's life and documenting it, and that's all very true. But oftentimes you're invited to have a front row seat to their drama and madness as well.
Well, I like to say with the ghostwriter / author, there's a very thin line between I'm the ghostwriter and I'm your therapist.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's what it is. And to me, I find the real odd thing of that relationship is like if I was your ghostwriter and we're writing Charlie's story, and you're sharing with me all these things from, your childhood, your teenage years, your adult years, maybe you were in the service or how you met your spouse, all those kind of things. It's like, man, I know you. I totally connect. I totally know you. I know your story. And guess what? You know nothing about me. You know very little because it's all about you. It's not about me. So it's just kind of like weird that I know you so well and you really don't even know me other than maybe a few things I might share in our conversations.
Yeah, it's true. And there's something there too where it's therapy, but it's like sloppy therapy, I find.
Yeah.
That
not licensed therapy, that's for sure.
No. But at the same time, and I think the same holds true for editors and book coaches, one piece of feedback I've gotten time and time again is that it was nice to not have to do the book process alone. That someone has company when they work with us. What I find really interesting when the time comes for the first and second round of edits with a ghostwriting client, I know I've done my job if they are insisting that certain things don't sound like them, and those things are their exact words, and they feel as though what I wrote is their voice, and the places where I have used part of a transcript verbatim, or I use a fragment that they wrote, that sounds way off, and can we cut it?
Yeah. It's funny because I have one other like short story I could share based exactly on that is, we were helping this woman ghostwrite a book about a course that she teaches. And so I have the ghostwriter and those two are working, and the ghostwriter calls me, some few weeks into the project, and she is just shaken. She's crying. She's all upset. I'm not doing this project anymore. I still want to work for you, but I'm not working with so-and-so. I just can't do that. And I'm like, whoa, put the brakes on. Like, what happened? And the client had called the ghostwriter and just lashed out to her, say, this writing is horrible. This is terrible. I don't sound this way. No one would talk that way. This is, and just kept pounding into her. And so long story short, I got the part of the text that she was talking about and the client was so upset about. And then long story short, it turns out that was a cut and paste from her website that the ghostwriter put there only as a reference so that she can work with some of that and kind of add it into like either the story or part of a process or something like that. And when I showed her that, I said, look, this came straight from your website. The ghostwriter didn't make this up. That she just put this there as a reference to refer to as she was working out on from your conversation. Oh, I didn't know that. Please tell her to continue. And I said, no, we're done with this. And I gave her a little bit of money back and said, don't call us.
Something I was warned about really early when and I don't mean this to sound as negative as it probably sounds, but somebody, an early mentor, said to me, you need to get used to, like, someone who can afford to hire you as a ghostwriter might not have heard no a whole lot in their life. And I've had a couple of those interactions where things do get resolved and smoothed over and it's fine, but there was a loss of temper that happened that then makes this a line has been crossed, and it's like, sorry, we can't continue if that's going to be the tone. And
yeah, I always try not to say no and try to say, like, have you ever thought about, or can I suggest if we put this here and do it this way, it sounds better or something like that. But I totally connect with you on that. Yes.
My first job out of college was in South Korea, and I found that culture where you don't say no and you don't ever challenge or question someone who's older than you has served me well in ghostwriting, because I've learned how to say maybe 50 different ways.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that appeals to a lot of people about freelancing and ghostwriting editing is the time and location flexibility. And you have taken that in a really fun direction. Speaking of spark plugs and transmissions, you and your wife basically travel America in an RV full time. Is that right?
Yes. Since 2018, before it became all the rage during the pandemic, our purpose was my wife has 5 children, and at the time they all lived in the Syracuse area of New York. And instead of just going up there for a week, or one family come down to Florida where we lived for like a week, we started tossing around the idea, if we had an RV, we could just go up there for the whole summer or like 5 months or something and just stay in each person's driveway and be there but not be there. And that kind of evolved from doing that to, well, let's go up to New Hampshire because we like to hike and we can go in the mountains. And then one daughter moved to Tennessee, so we're like, oh, they live on a horse farm. So now we go there and we stay on this 400-acre horse farm for a while. And actually they have national horse shows. And then guess who now is one of the judges for the horse show? And so we're going up there actually to do another show. But we just started to be like, we sold everything and we just tow our car behind the motorhome. And it's just nice that we can go to all these different places. So we can go to Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, Tennessee, and then we come into Florida somewhere for the winter just to stay out of the, the cold and the snow. But it's just nice to have, you have different areas, which brings about a different inspiration. And you have, different people that you meet, different campgrounds that you're in, different resorts that you're in. And it's just, it's because of our careers that we're able to do that. Because if we had like a 9 to 5 and had to report somewhere, you can't do that. But, I run this, book writing agency and ghostwriting agency, and my wife runs an award program for children's books, authors, illustrators, and publishers. And, she's been doing that. This is her 6th year that she's going into. And, both of our careers have just been a blessing to give us this lifestyle of, we can just pack up and go wherever we want to go, at least, in the continental U.S.
Oh, so cool. That's exciting. Well, where can listeners find you online, that is?
You can definitely find me on LinkedIn. My email, if you want to send a message to connect, is tjacobs@jacobswc.com. And then my website is jacobswc.com. It's my website. I'm not really on any other social media other than LinkedIn.
Great. Well, Tim, thanks again. This has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
And safe travels. Stay safe on the road.
Thank you.
If you have an epic story, I'd love to hear it. You can find me at dailyprose.com or on LinkedIn. My links and Tim's are in the show notes. Thanks for listening.